One. You are on, sir.
All right, great, thank you. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Basalt Town Council meeting for May 11th, 2021. So we would like to begin our meeting with a call to order and roll call for attendance, and then we'll proceed with our council agenda. Good to see everybody this afternoon. Karen, I noticed you're on board, so that item will be coming up shortly. So Pam, you'd be so kind as to call the roll for our council attendance, please.
I'd be happy to. Let's begin with Ryan Slack.
Here.
Thank you, Ryan. Elise Hall.
Present.
Thank you, Elise. David Knight.
Here.
Thank you, David. Glenn Drummond.
Here.
Thank you, Glenn. Bill Infante.
Here.
Thank you, Bill. Gary Tenenbaum.
Here.
Thank you, Gary. And Bill Kane.
I'm here.
Perfect. 18 is present.
All right, thank you. So our first order of business tonight is a consent agenda, which has 3 items. It has minutes from our April 27th meeting, the bail board grant awards from the tobacco tax, and a special event activity permit for Basalt Half Marathon and Relay. So I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented, or if there is desire to take any of those off and have further discussion, that option is open as well. But the suggested motion is that we approve items as presented on the consent agenda.
Mayor, I move that the town council approve the consent agenda items as presented.
All right, is there a second? I didn't catch the second, but I know there was one. So Pam, it's been moved and seconded. Do we want a roll call? I keep forgetting this is a roll call. I think this is just a voice vote. So all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, thank you, guys. Consent agenda is completed. At this point in the meeting, this is a call to the public to see if we have members of the public that would like to address the council on any issue. Should you be listening in and want to call council, please limit your comments to 3 minutes and identify yourself by name and address, please. So Susan will coordinate, field any calls coming in and give you directions as to how to call in to address council tonight. Susan?
So the easiest way to indicate that you would like to talk is to go online to the town's website, and the first page provides a link that you can, a Zoom link that you can simply click and access the meeting. In lieu of that, you can telephone 1-253-215-8782 and put in the webinar ID, which is 964-0932-7257. And right now, I don't believe we had any members of the public that indicated that they wanted to talk, right, Pam? Pam, you're on mute.
Sorry. Yes, I don't see anybody in my email. So.
And we do have public hearings tonight, and the same instructions apply. So it's helpful if you try to get on early so that Pam knows that you're in the waiting room and that she can enter you in at the appropriate time. But we have, if folks come on a little late after the public comment time, the mayor has been allowing folks to speak. So I think, Bill, with that, we might be ready to go to the next item.
All righty, great. Well, yeah, and if anyone, is trying to get in, we'll certainly take a call. The next order of business are mayor and council reports and comments. So the floor is open for comments from council and the mayor, but I will defer to fellow councilors if they have items that they'd like to talk about with fellow councilors. So floor is open for that. David Knight.
Thanks. I just have a couple things to go over. One was from the Conservancy, the Roaring Fork Conservancy. There was the 4th grade River Day this past week, May 6th and 7th at Old Pond Park. And Rico was saying that was a big success, and they actually stocked the pond, so if there's more kids out there who want to go fishing, there's a lot of big fish in there right now. I saw last week as well. And then the frying pan cleanup also was as big as ever with about 250 people. So those are my Conservancy updates. And then I also wanted to amplify another message unrelated to that with emergency broadband benefit. I've been kind of following this the last month or so, and the enrollment is actually opening tomorrow. This isn't connected with the town per se, but I think it would behoove all of us to kind of amplify this message and be aware of it. There is a temporary discount that the FCC is offering for qualifying low-income households. It's up to $50 a month, discount on service and equipment rentals. Enrollment begins tomorrow and has a really easy URL, getemergencybroadband.org. So just so you're all aware, and if in your travels, you can amplify where appropriate, that'd be awesome. And that's all I have, Mayor.
Great. Well, thanks for that info. Yeah, that Old Pond Park's a great deal, fishing for fun. And yeah, I think they're supposed to be 7 years or younger, or maybe 8 on what the cutoff was as a guideline, but I've seen some 7-year-olds out there that had beards and had pretty refined casting techniques. So anyway, that's great. Guys are doing that. Glad to see it. Other comments from council. I have just a few. Staff met this last week. I had contact from Steve Humble, who is going to be our new, as everyone now knows, cat is finally out of the bag relative to our new restaurant on the park. And whoops, this is my assistant. I was, so I think there was a lot of anxiety about timing for when we were going to get our great lawn in place and get many of the park amenities in. So that was quickly handed off to staff. These guys had I think a pretty constructive get together last Friday. And I would just ask Ryan to maybe comment on that, his report, so that we all know about what's coming. I think we're going to do all we can do to make sure that that's a successful process, getting Steve in place and getting that restaurant up and going. So, I think while I have the floor here, I would just like to mention for anyone listening in on the public, we're going to be providing a series of video presentations from the mayor and from individual councilors on different topics, things that are occurring in town, and they're going to be unfolding over coming weeks. And I know for my part, I'm going to be talking about the park, and I think we should make sure people are aware that while we can't provide a lot of detail, and we don't have a lot of detail at this point, we know that we've had a formal application filed for redevelopment of the Clucks Market grocery store, which is an enormous sort of breakthrough for us in the town. The building has sat vacant for way too long and is kind of just a missing hole in the heart of our downtown community. So that's welcome news. It's a land use process. We can't take positions. We're going to have to evaluate exactly what is being requested and evaluate the proposal in the normal land use process. But I think it's great news for the town, and I'm sure we're all going to be working to come to some amicable review and approval for that project. So exciting stuff happening. 11 projects this summer. It's going to be a very busy summer, and we're going to be working hard. We have had numerous communications relative to parking in the downtown. That's going to be a hot topic. The word is that Aspen is basically sold out for the summer. We're feeling the feedback from lots of folks in town is that they're kind of seeing the same thing in terms of people that have signed up and subscribed for rentals. So I think we got a very, very busy summer coming our way, and we're going to be doing a lot to manage downtown and Willits and make sure that we're providing the best experience possible, and working with our retailers and restaurateurs and business owners to make sure it's a successful summer. So we're aware of it. We're going to try to get ahead of the curve to the degree possible. So they would be my comments for tonight. Anyone else? Bill?
Sure, just wanted to give a little bit of an update on the
Bill,
Forest
you're
Service property.
muted.
No, it shouldn't be.
Bill,
Is
you're
it-
on mute.
No, we hear Bill.
No,
I hear Bill.
can
I'm
hear
off mute.
I can hear him.
Still on mute, Bill. You're going to have
I can
to
hear him.
get unmuted somehow.
I wonder.
Hey, Bill Kane, can you hear us?
Bill,
Bill Kane, can you hear us? Can you hear it? Bill? Bill, is your volume down?
Uh-oh.
There you go.
There we go.
Okay,
Okay.
Oops.
now you got me, Bill?
It doesn't, can everybody hear Bill?
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it
Oh, you
seemed
can?
that
I
way.
cannot.
Huh,
Can you hear us?
can you hear anybody else?
Not know what has gone on.
No, he can't hear anybody. I'll tell him to stop talking.
Mayor Kane, can you hear me?
Bill,
I'll
can you,
text him and let him know.
I'm sorry, I had a lost signal there for a couple, I lost you. Could you, Bill, I'm sorry to
Okay,
ask you to repeat, but I lost the first part of that, if you wouldn't mind.
no worries, I
Sorry.
didn't get too far down the road. Can you hear me now, though, Bill?
Yeah, I can.
Oh, good.
Okay. Just wanted to give a little bit of an update on the U.S. Forest Service hearing related to the property behind Crown Mountain. And I guess I want to begin by congratulating Eagle County for taking the bull by the horns and spearheading a review, engaging the public, and preparing a general overview of the issues that our fellow community members have expressed concern about. But last week, they presented the findings of the listening sessions that had been conducted with a pretty significant number of folks up and down the valley. And there was nothing that was a huge surprise. People are concerned about promoting recreation, promoting conservation. There were other nods to the possibility of constructing housing of one form or another, elderly or affordable or both. But it was a great first step in a process that will, I guess, roll out over the next months. There is a little bit of urgency, however, in that the 2018 Farm Bill sunsets in 2023. And so in order to take advantage of the enabling legislation that provides for the Department of Ag to convey property, administrative property, under a lease or purchase scenario, we kind of need to be moving quickly. But I certainly think it's in our interest as the town of Basalt to occupy a seat at the table, which is certainly available to us, and to participate in this process because it is material to the future complexion of the Mid-Valley. And I'd certainly hope that the other municipalities up and down the valley, from Glenwood to Aspen, participate, and it's probably valuable even beyond our immediate Roaring Fork Valley down the I-70 corridor. But it's a great process. We'll be hearing more. The next step is for Joe Kahneman, the county's point person on this, to reach out to the U.S. Forest Service regarding the prospects of a direct sale versus lease. And they'll be, I guess, updating us as they have more information. But again, hats off to Eagle County for spearheading this. I think it's a great initiative of citizen engagement. And that's all from me.
All right. Other comments? Brian, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I would just like to let everyone know Rudai Reservoir is open. It's been open for the past 10 days. And it is slowly filling. I think in the last week it rose 3 feet. So I know they're working on the A&S inspection again up there, and it's a great program that we support as a town and all the other municipalities around us support. So get up there and have some fun this summer.
So Ryan, is it likely that Rudai will not fill this summer? Is that the forecast at this point?
Yeah, I think they were looking at about 90%. I have a meeting on RUAPA meeting on Thursday, and I'm sure April will give us another update on that. But the last article I read sounds like they're shooting for 90% full this year.
Great. All right, good. Thank you. Other comments from council? Hearing none, then we will turn to the our town manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple things to update you all on. The first was that on the agenda, we actually had the Capital Needs Committee update. So just briefly on that, we do have our full list of participants that makes up our Capital Needs Committee. So really exciting. We're doing our kickoff meeting with them on the 17th, which will just kind of be an introduction to the process, an overview of the bylaws. We'll go over the master plan. Cushing Terrell will be present with us, as well as Bill Ray. And the list of those folks that are participating as the primary member, I'll just read them off briefly. You have Mike Kozdrowski from Bach, Ioani Reese from the Chamber. We've got Leroy Durox from BEMC, Liz Bell from BPAC, Cheryl Rupel from the Finance Advisory Board, Pranav Lakina, I hope I pronounced that correctly, from the Green Team, and then Eric Vozick from Planning and Zoning Commission, Paul Hiltz from Post, and Joe Bauer from Vail. So wanted to make sure I thanked them. I'm sure we'll get to that when we do our meeting with them. But we did also put out a press release on Monday outlining who those members were and kind of kicking off the Basalt Forward 2030 officially. So pretty exciting, and more to come on that. The second thing I wanted to mention, I included a letter of support that I had signed to essentially to DOLA. They are getting ready to kick off a 2-year-long project that's a regional resiliency and recovery roadmap to COVID-19. And this is meant to break the state into 16 regions. Right now, the region we would be involved in most directly would be from Aspen to Glenwood. And initially we were looking at a scope of Aspen to Parachute, but I think we're breaking that into 2 separate regions for a variety of reasons. But that is the application that we have in currently. We may, I've of course been participating in discussions on the Eagle County side as well, that, you know, they may try to condense some of these regions once they figure out who all of the applicants are. So more to come on that. However, you know, I think the focus is to try to pair regions that have some commonalities. So being a resort economy, you know, that lends itself to having some similarities from an economic standpoint. This really is an economic development effort. And so what they want to do, once you get the sort of general topics that emerge as being priorities within the region, they will pair that region with a technical assistance firm that will work with the region for, you know, 18 to 24 months, and then ultimately come out with some type of plan and implementation plan. So it may be that while we pair up with a broader region, an implementation plan may be sort of a smaller scale. There's not a whole lot of detail on this yet, frankly, and there is no funding attached to it. We think that there could be. DOLA usually runs their programs in a sort of multi-step process where the first would be kind of a planning phase, and then subsequent to that, you can, you know, ask for funding for various pursuits, not dissimilar to what we're seeing with our broadband initiative that we just received a grant for. So So at any rate, that's about the information I have for now. As we learn more, I will get you that info. And a couple other things to mention is, Bill, you talked about the filming updates. Those topics this time around as a topic or discussion of the broadband project that we're going to be doing, looking at the environment and our green initiatives, update on the pool, and then of course the Basalt River Park. We've got some other projects coming along as well, but for the purposes of timing and what I had the capacity to do last week to get all those topics kind of squared away and talking points out, that we'll follow up in a few weeks to bring another series of videos. And this, of course, is on the heels of our discussion on communication strategy. So just trying to do shorter snippets of information. We'll be able to put those videos out on our normal sources. So we're doing the Facebook page and the web page, but then also Grassroots has indicated that they would air them for us as well. So we'll hopefully reach a little bit of a broader audience there. Some really good news that we heard today. We had written a grant on the heels of purchasing the Public Works facility, and we just received word that we got $150,000 toward that project from the Department of Local Affairs. So pretty exciting there. That also comes on the heels of the $800,000 grant that we got in the region for broadband. So I think we're doing pretty well there. And then the last thing I might mention, because it was on consent agenda, we did review with the Vail Board the grant requests for the tobacco tax. We've now kind of gone through a full cycle of looking at how to best put that tobacco tax to use in the community. As a reminder, we did provide $100,000 to the school district this year. They have now hired and have in place a counselor full-time in the elementary school. We also have the Hope Center, granted $150,000 to them for counseling, free counseling for businesses and community members. And then with this grant round that we did, was another $70,000 to $70,000. I'm having trouble saying that. $7,250 in grants for local nonprofits. So those awards will be doled out within the month. And then I will just say, one of the applicants was Asaf Dory, who had come speak with the council at the last meeting. Excuse me. And looking through that application, it was decided that there wasn't enough of a nexus to the tobacco tax. And so I did follow up with Asaf, and we have some money left in the discretionary giving that what the Vail Board had recommended was providing a $2,500 grant to that effort in their fundraising for his challenge. And of course, we have some police staff that will be helping and accompanying him up the mountain. So wanted to make sure that I got that out there, and we are in communication with him about that. So that's all I have for now, Mayor.
Great, thank you very much, Ryan. Any questions for our town manager, Elise?
Less of a question and more of a statement that now that the weather is nice and it looks like Eagle and Pickens County are even reducing their COVID levels again, I would love to resurrect Coffee with Council.
All right. So what do we think maybe Ryan and Pam, we could, Pam sort of herded cats on that last go around. If that worked, maybe we could ask our town clerk to get emails out to council and identify times. And, you know, obviously we're gonna have to notice them if we're gonna get more than 2, so we could resurrect that.
What does I know there's been some banter since the last time this was brought up, and of course it was still cold. Did you want to do it as an entire council and just put the invite out, or do you want to rotate through with a few council members at a time and do an unnoticed meeting?
I would
think it
have an
should be
opinion, but
noticed.
if you hear what Elise has to say.
I think it should be noticed, but I don't know that we necessarily should assign counselors. Because obviously, you know, we all have different schedules that we're working with, but, you know, depending on how it rotates, you know, what days a week we land on or whatever, I would love the opportunity for whoever is available to be there and not restrict it to only 2 counselors. You know, and then there becomes like a telephone chain of everybody calling around and like, who's going to be there? Oh, there's already 2. I can't go. So I mean, I just think it would be easier if we just noticed it. And then if it's not a problem, great. If it, you know, if there's more than 2 or 3 people there, we're covered.
Yeah, or Pam, do you think we could do like a doodle poll to see when it works best for people, or do we want to identify some time slots and those who can make it? But I assume since coffee is involved, this is a morning event that we're looking at, hopefully.
Well, I mean, cocktail with council is fun too, but I'm not sure that that's sanctioned.
Yeah.
I might not recommend that one.
I don't think we've reached that level of sophistication yet.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you want to do it where the entire council is invited and we notice it, you know, I think trying to align schedules, I think might be just pretty difficult to do every single time. And so my suggestion might be just we pick a day and, you know, as Elise suggested, if you're able to show up, great. And we'll notice it as a meeting. And if there's more than 2 there, that would be fine. And I might just ask Jeff to send around sort of the rules of the game one additional time, just so we kind of know how to stay in bounds with regard to, you know, topics being discussed at those meetings.
Okay. I'll just chip in my comment. Mondays and Tuesdays are going to be the best days for me, but you know, we'll try see what we can come up with.
And if you all want to email like sort of that general information, which kind of days of the week, that might be helpful.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
I think it's a good idea. You know, this is tough, this electronic world. So I think it's a good idea, and it does look like things are getting better all the time.
I know it was one of those things we discussed in our retreat, but like making sure we stay legal. It's very, very difficult when it comes to these kind of discussions where you have multiple councilmen and you got the public and what's discussed and whatnot. So it's, I don't know.
Yeah.
I know I specifically asked you that, Jeff.
Okay.
So we'll be sure to notice the coffee with council get-togethers, and I will circulate to town council and to staff some ground rules that been previously put together, and that will help ensure that those meetings do stay legal, and we can go from there.
Great. Yeah, you're a stickler for detail, Jeff. Like we can't pass ordinances at these coffees in the morning.
But yeah, I'll put that as my first bullet point. Yeah.
Right. Great. Any other questions for Ryan before we move on? All right, thank you guys. Next order of business are presentations. First up is a review of our first quarter financial statement. Christy.
Okay, there we go. Thank you. Awesome. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and get that up. And then we can review these. Here we go. Everybody see that okay? Okay. So, let's see if I can. Okay. So the good news about the first quarter financial report is that it is fairly boring, which I love on the financial world, because that means that things are pretty much as you would expect them. Generally, our results are higher on our revenue side than we originally anticipated in our budget, which we've discussed on our sales tax side, and also because of building permits. So those are all the things that we've expected to happen. But this graph just depicts for the general fund the revenues by source and expenditures by department year to date. Just note that there are some skewed numbers in here just because it is just through March 31st, the first quarter. So you're going to have a higher percentage than the rest of your months for sales or for property tax, and a lower percentage for sales tax, because we receipt in a lot of our property taxes in the first quarter, and then the rest in the second quarter. So that's just weighted for right now. And the same thing for Public Works. We had the Public Works purchase this first quarter, which skews the results and makes everything a lower percentage comparatively to what we'd anticipate for the full year. Okay. There's a couple of things I'd note here on our general fund. Is first over to the right, as promised, is the cash and investment accounts of where those are being held. Just for your information, the interest rates remain very low. There is starting amongst the feds to be notes about the potential for a rate increase in the future, but they haven't really given any specifics around that yet. So it's just kind of in this low category still. So we will have a unfavorable variance on our interest rate earnings for the year. But looking at our sales tax, the thing I love about the percent of budget on our worksheets is that you get to look at what 25% would be and then compare it to what we've brought in, which is a good comparison point. And so you look at our specific ownership tax at being 30% collected compared to our budget, which is indicative of a stronger economy than originally expected, which is good. Our sales tax is 28.3% of budget, so that is also favoring higher than budget right now, as we've been discussing in our monthly sales tax reports. And then we receive in a lot of our licenses and permits at the beginning of the year. Our unrestricted building permit number, we've received in roughly 2/3 of our budget, simply because we received in the Stedman receipt for their building permit in the first quarter. So that's really representative of that in large part. So there was a couple of other smaller ones, but that's the vast majority of that. So I don't still anticipate that at this point that we're going to be ahead of budget on our building permits, but we are tracking as we anticipated on that line item. Let's see if there's anything else. Let's see here.
Hey, Christy.
Yes.
A question on the property tax.
Yes.
You know, I guess this is pretty tricky to forecast because, you know, we have the ability for people to pay in installments or pay in one lump sum in June. So is 45% indicative of you know, a sort of a solid expectation, or is this worrisome that people are going to be delinquent on property taxes this year? Does that look pretty good, that number?
That's a great question, Bill. Thank you. So the interesting thing, the great thing to look at is your year-to-date actual from the prior year and comparative to our actual. So, you know, we collected 484,000 last year and 510,000 this year. We didn't collect any additional property tax between years for our general fund. So that really is indicative of how collections are going year over year. So we're slightly better than how much as a percentage we collected the prior year. So I would say that that's good. it's not exceptionally strong, it's not exceptionally weak, but good.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Let's see here, anything else? I think that's it on the revenue side. Expenditure side, like I said, for public works, I was kind of picking on that one. Let's see, where are you? Facilities and cemeteries, where it's at. In looking at the public works facility purchased, that's why that one is higher compared to what we would anticipate year over year, or year to date, I mean. And the rest of them are, public works in general, and streets are gonna mostly occur in summer. So that's to be anticipated. Same with recreation on that one. Any question on the general fund? Okay, fantastic. Okay, so then we looked at our restricted fund and where we're getting our revenues in. Roughly 60% coming in on our sales taxes, which is pretty normal. So that one is actually, as you would anticipate, really. Our readers are doing pretty strong, and building permits are doing okay. So, but not extremely strong on the building permit side yet, on the restricted funding building permit part. Okay. Let's see here. The one, I guess I would say, really strong point, besides, of course, our sales tax numbers coming in higher than anticipated, is really looking at our tobacco tax. So when we're looking at our year-to-date actual of 169, we've already collected 42%. So the tobacco taxes continue to be very strong compared to our budget, and still are a really good indicator of those resources staying at or better than what we anticipated.
Hey, Christie, can I interrupt?
Please.
I'm not excited that the tobacco tax is doing so well.
Right.
Well,
The goal of the tax was to get people to stop smoking. So
Yeah. Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah.
sorry. I know it's good because I did the tobacco tax grants, and it's awesome to be able to really help these organizations. But I wanted to go in the other direction. I want you to come and say we're 42% down.
Yeah, wouldn't it be great too, Gary, when you could actually see that we're having an impact because of all the monies and tobacco tax we've been giving as grants to all these wonderful organizations that are making impacts in our community. That's the hope.
I would like to endorse Gary's comment. It's a little depressing that tobacco is doing so well. It's just, and you just wonder what role, that vaping is playing and all that. It's just very discouraging. Yeah,
that is true. Yeah, it's definitely a need for sure that because we see this, it's an indicator of a bad thing, that hopefully we can center and focus on these grants that can hopefully make a difference for people so that they stop doing those things. Agreed. Thank you. That's a very good point.
I wonder if we could, I better not say that. No, I will not go there.
Okay. The other thing I'll note on the restricted fund is we did receive in our certificates of participation for the Arbity Park. And so we're, as you see here, that's the vast majority of our expenses is 1.6 million. A lot of that being Arbity Park, that is going fast and furious. Public Works, that's another very large portion. 350,000 of that was for the Public Works facility. And then on the legislative, we had for TICA, that was that $350,000 donation towards our construction. So we're starting to move forward on the expenditures to help and support our community in our restricted funding and getting all of these processes in place. That part of it is exciting to see that we're making this kind of progress and looking at already spending 2.4 million towards these really good projects that we're doing for the town. Any questions on the restricted fund? So then the bond fund is super boring because you're just getting in your property tax, which is good. You're 45%. And then you just haven't spent anything yet because those payments are due in June and in December. And then water fund is revenue is still lower than anticipated just because we get most of our revenue in the summer and fall. I still expect that. Well, that's kind of like a sad one to be favorable to budget on, but given the drought conditions, you just wonder if we could have another high year on our water service account. But everything is tracking as expected on water fund expenditures. We have the swinging bridge that's going to be coming out in the summer and fall. And so those are moving forward on that. So any other questions on the quarterlies?
No questions? Okay.
Okay, thank you.
So Christy, does that conclude the presentation?
It does. I guess the only thing I might say too, Mayor, is that we're just completing the audit report for 2020. And so we'll have that report, we're planning to report that out to council on June 8th.
All right, well, thank you. Any
Thank
questions
you.
of Christy on our first quarter financial report before we move on? Okay, thank you, Christy. So next order of business are now council actions. Our first order of business is to conduct an interview and appointment to the Roaring Fork Valley Regional Planning Commission. Susan and Ryan are presiding.
And we have Karen Barsh, who is our interviewee here. This item concerns the town's recommendation to Eagle County on an appointment to the Roaring Fork Valley Regional Planning Commission. And our recommendation is that we recommend that Eagle County appoint Karen Barsh initially as an alternate to be converted to a regular appointment when Charlie Spickert terms ends. So we talked about this appointment a little bit at the last meeting. This appointment's recommendation is made pursuant to an IGA that we have with Eagle County. And Eagle County received 12 applicants to the Roaring Fork Valley Regional Planning Commission. We ended up interviewing 2 of those, and the subcommittee recommended Karen. The subcommittee was made up of Councilor Drummond, Town Manager, Ryan Mahoney, James Lint, and myself, and we conducted a couple of interviews and felt that Karen was the best fit and met our goals the most. And we have Karen here today for you guys to ask questions of Karen. And maybe just to start out with, maybe Karen, you could just introduce yourself and tell a little bit about you and why you were interested in serving on the Roaring Fork Valley Regional Planning Commission.
That sounds great, Susan. Thanks. So I'm Karen Barch, and I've been part of the Basalt community for almost 10 years now, having been in Chicago before that. I've been active in the community in a number of ways, and I think I met most of you through my tenure at the library, where I first got involved in committees that were involved in fundraising to raise the special bond that was needed to fund the operations of the library, and then joined the board and ultimately served in a variety of roles, including treasurer and board chair. And I termed out on March 31st. And although I'm involved in some other parts of our community, I serve on other boards, and I volunteer for the Forest Conservancy and the Aspen Valley Hospital. I'm concerned about what's happening with development in our community, the perceived and what I think are real problems about how we move forward in a smart and sustainable way, taking into account the needs and concerns about our community about maintaining its character. So I'm hoping to bring some of my skills to the committee My background is in general management, primarily in the publishing and technology fields and venture capital. And I also was a consultant for about half my career. I'm incredibly familiar with the rules about public volunteer, the sunshine rules, et cetera. So certainly understand how important that is and how it comes into play when you're working on a committee that's so critical to our public. I'm excited about the opportunity. I'd have a lot to learn, but I think I could really do a great job in representing our part of the Eagle County.
Great. Yeah, I would just say, you know, I certainly know Karen from her years at the library, and she did an outstanding job on behalf of the community and shoring up financing and really dealing with a lot of organizational, administrative kind of matters, and really got the library sailing on an even keel. And, you know, I think she has done a great job and demonstrated great kind of wisdom and smarts in her work there, and would have very little reservation about your work on the Regional Planning Commission. I'm sure you'd be a great addition to that commission. So it would be my comments.
Thanks, Bill.
So again, this is just an opportunity if you guys have other questions of Karen. And if
so, Gary.
I raised my hand. I was trying not to, I interrupted Christy, so I didn't want to do that again. Sorry, Christy. Anyway, so Karen, you mentioned your concern about the growth of this area. I wanted to see if you could dive in a little bit more on how you feel like we can address that through the Roaring Fork Valley Planning Commission.
Well, I'm hoping we can take into account some of the planning that's happened already, for example, the Basalt Master Plan. And I know Eagle County is working on a comprehensive plan itself, and I attended, or watched, I should say, one of the meetings where there was a review of that comprehensive plan. And it seems to me there is some intersection of the thinking that's going on, for example, about affordable housing, and thinking about how density could be a solution, but it's not at all obvious yet. So that's the kind of questions that I'm hoping that we can work together on, and also look to our neighboring counties to coordinate some of this planning, because it's not just an Eagle County problem, it's a Garfield, Pitkin River, Roaring Fork Valley problem. So big challenges. I do not want to underestimate them, but I think there are ways to work within our community to address them so that there's more transparency, which I think has been a bit of a problem, and definitely some of the perceptions that the people in our community were not necessarily being given the attention they deserve.
Thanks, Karen.
Are there questions for Karen? Susan, I had a question. Do we know where we are relative to the staffing of the commission? Are there still, even with Karen's appointment, will there still be open slots, or is Karen the last position to be filled?
no, they actually they have the 3 regular positions that are expiring. Temple Glazier's position already expired. And then Charlie Spickard's and Philip Ring's positions were expiring in November. And so Charlie chose not to reapply, and Philip has asked to reapply. So that's why we made the recommendation that we did, that Charlie's still intending to fill out his term But Bill, I do think I saw a couple hands. I think Bill and Bonte had his
Yeah,
hand
go ahead.
and Glenn had his hand up also.
So,
Well, let me defer to Glenn because I was, in the absence of any other questions, I was going to say some nice words and then make a motion.
perfect.
Glenn?
So it's my understanding that Temple and Charlie's position both expire in November. It seems like the board's a little bit confused on how that all worked, but I asked Temple this specifically. So it seems like Karen would be our refill for Charlie. That's at least my interpretation. It seems a little cloudy, I'm not gonna lie.
Okay, well, that's good to know. I think we
Second your motion.
need to be working on this. Bill?
Well, Bill, I was just going to echo your experiences. I've known Karen in the context of her great leadership that she exhibited at the library and have been very impressed with the energy, the inspiration, the professionalism that she brought. And I think we should be thrilled to have her represent Basalt on the Roaring Fork Valley Regional Planning Commission. And I'd truly be honored, Karen, to make the motion that Town Council recommend to the Eagle County Commissioners that the commission appoint you, Karen Barch, to the RFV RPC as described in the agenda summary sheet.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Is this voice vote?
You can do a voice vote for this matter.
Counselor? It is?
Yes.
Okay, great. So we have a motion and a second. So I would just ask for all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, Karen. Karen, thank you very much for your willingness to commit time and your considerable smarts and capabilities. This is a absolutely critical commission. I just think that all of us around this computer tonight all believe that we got our hands full here for the next 10 years in terms of development pressure in the valley, and we're really going to be looking to that commission to help kind of make some sense out of the evolution of growth and development. So thanks for your willingness to serve.
You are welcome, and thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Okay, guys, that completes item 7A, and we now move to 7B, a public hearing and second reading of ordinance number 3, series of 2021. This is an ordinance of the Town Council, Town of Basalt, approving a contract to buy and sell real estate with Howard DeLuca for the purchase of Unit 333, Riverside Plaza, Lot BC Condominiums, Basalt, Colorado. Ryan and Christy.
Mr. Mayor, I was going to defer to Jeff on this one. He took the lead on it at the last meeting, so we'll hear him for the second reading, if that's all right.
Sure.
Sure thing. So, Council, this is a second reading of an ordinance to approve a contract to purchase Unit 333 of the Riverside Plaza BC building. The Riverside Plaza BC building, as I described at first reading, is on Two Rivers Road. It has commercial, the first floor is commercial space. The second and third floor are residential units. The town owns 7 of the 8 existing residential units, and this is the 8th. And that 8th unit is subject to a resident occupied deed restriction and also a right of first refusal to the benefit of the town. Prior to the seller bringing this to the market, the town was able to engage with him and enter this contract to purchase the unit for $360,000. That's a purchase price that is less than the appreciation caps that are allowed for under the deed restriction. One of the provisions of the real estate contract was a contingency for an appraisal. Staff worked at trying to obtain a timely appraisal, but it's a crazy world out there and it was not possible. However, did confer with a broker that the town has used in the past, Ted Borchelt, for a opinion of value. And in Ted's opinion, that this unit was at $360,000. He considered it to be a very good price, even with the RO deed restriction and modest finishes. As a point of reference, although it does not have the same deed restriction, since March 1 of this year, the lowest priced 2-bedroom available is a unit in Valley Pines at $550,000. So based on that and in review of other listings and closings that have occurred this year, there appears to be pretty good support for the price that the town has this unit under contract for. One of the other contingencies under the contract was a lease provision. This unit is currently leased, and it was fortunately enough that tenant does qualify under the town's employee housing, community housing guidelines, and the seller and the tenant have elected to lease that unit from the town under our normal lease for town-owned units under the community housing guidelines. And so things kind of have just fallen into place there if we are to proceed to closing. In review of title, there was really nothing that was of concern. There was in reviewing any title commitment and all the title work, you always get a history of the property, and here the history of the Ute Center development was interesting, but nothing of concern that would affect this particular unit. And lastly, an inspection was done of the property. The unit is in good condition, and nothing that was of concern there. So with that, I think that staff is supportive of moving forward and purchasing the unit and furthering the town's goal of expanding its affordable housing inventory and supporting its other ownership interests in this building. And with that, I'll take happy to answer any other questions. This is a public hearing, so we'll want to take public comment as well.
Okay, great. Questions of Jeff before we open it up to public comment? All right, thank you. Susan and Pam, at this point, we would like to open the public hearing and accept public comment on the proposed ordinance number 3. It is just short of 7 p.m. So if Susan, if you would kind of notify public about calling in and providing public comments should they wish to do that.
Okay, so the first page of the agenda packet, when you go to the town's website through the agenda center, has a yellow link that you can hit and access the meeting Zoom information. You can also call us, and the number is on the television screen. Call 1-253-215-8782. And at that time, the webinar ID is 964-0932-7257. And I do see a couple names on the screen. There was a Ben Nefield who is showing up, so I don't know if he wants to speak. And then there's a Flynn Stewart also on the screen. Are those both folks that want to speak on this item, Pam? Do you know?
They're for the next item.
Oh, okay. Okay. So Pam, you don't have anybody else, right?
No, I don't. I don't see anyone in email or in the attendees section.
Okay. So I think I talked long enough that we have the lines open. So I think that you could move on.
All right. So hearing no comment, I will close the public hearing at 7:02 p.m. and ask if there are council comments or questions of staff. All right. With that, then I would entertain a motion to approve ordinance number 3, series of 2021 on second reading.
I'll make a motion to approve what Bill said. I don't have it in front of me. Do you need the exact thing, Jeff? I can do that.
The motion would be to adopt ordinance number 3, series of 2021 on second reading, and you could say so moved.
So moved.
All right, it's been
Second.
moved and seconded. Pam, if you would be.
We need a
kind.
second.
Oh, I thought we did have a second. Sorry, I heard.
I just seconded.
Okay.
Second.
So it's been moved and seconded. Pam, if you'd be so kind as to call the roll.
Absolutely. Let's begin with David Knight.
Yes.
Thank you, David. Bill Kane.
Yes.
Thank you, Bill. Glenn Drummond.
Yes.
Thank you, Glenn. Elise Huddle.
Yes.
Thank you, Elise. Let's go back up to Bill Infante.
Yes.
Thank you, Bill. Ryan Slack.
Yes.
Thank you, Ryan. And Gary Tannenbaum.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
All right, great. Thank you very much. Next order of business is the public hearing and second reading for ordinance number 4. This is a companion ordinance that will provide a supplemental appropriation for to cover the purchase of Unit 333. So this is a public hearing, second reading for ordinance number 4, series of 2021, ordinance of the Town Council, Town of Basalt, Colorado, amending the 2021 budget and providing for a supplemental appropriation related to Basalt Forward 2030 to call contribution and purchase of Unit 333 in the Riverside Plaza Lot BC condominiums. Christy.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll share my screen just to remind people what this one's about. Let's see here. Here we go. So I'm just going to go down to the section with the actual budget. Just to remind everybody is as Jeff had just so eloquently explained, the affordable housing purchase, that was the first thing that we were looking at doing, including some nominal closing costs at $1,000. And so we had to do a transfer to our general fund, from our general fund to our restricted fund, from our beginning fund balance from 2020. That was favorable variances from the sales tax from last year. And then we added to this to cause additional funding for the $110,000 for startup costs for this year and next year. Basalt Forward costs of $82,000 as well, that are listed on the bottom of this in Note A. And then also a transfer to be able to pay for Cushing Terrell's costs, to move some of the Midland Streetscapes money for Cushing Terrell, and then also the facility needs study to kind of consolidate that to be able to pay Cushing Terrell's cost.
Okay. All right. Questions for Christy about supplemental appropriation for these items? So this also is a second reading and public hearing. So at this point, if there are no questions, I would ask Susan and Pam to coordinate any public comment that might come in regarding ordinance number 4 as proposed.
So Cesar, if you could put up the phone number, again, the best way is to send the link through the Agenda Center, which is the first page highlighted in yellow, or you can dial 1-253-215-8782, and the webinar ID is 964-0932-7257. And at this time, we haven't received anyone that would like to speak on this item.
That's correct.
So I think we're ready to go.
Okay, just wait a few minutes here to see if anyone might want to comment. Sounds like nothing. So I will then formally close the public hearing on second reading ordinance number 4, 2021, and ask if there are questions from council of staff before we call the question. Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve ordinance number 4, series of 2021 on second reading.
Mayor, I move the town council adopt ordinance number 4, series of 2021 on second reading.
Second.
Second. Okay, been moved and seconded. Pam, please call the roll.
Absolutely. Let's begin with David Knight.
Yes.
Thank you. Elise Huddle.
Yes.
Thank you. Bill King.
Yes.
Thank you. Gary Tenenbaum.
Yes.
Thank you. Bill Infante.
Yes.
Thank you. Glenn Drummond.
Yes.
Thank you. And Ryan Slack.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously.
All right, thank you. Next item 7D. This is a first reading of ordinance number 5, series of 2021. It's an ordinance of the Town Council, Town of Basalt, Colorado, approving a license agreement for the encroachment of a berm and landscaping in the town's right-of-way for the property located at 10 River Oaks. James.
Thank you. If I may share my screen here, just a quick second. This item is a first reading of an ordinance that would approve of a license agreement for the installation of a berm with landscaping partially in the Willets Lane right-of-way at 10 River Oaks. The request is being made by 10 River Oaks LLC. The property subject to the application is 10 River Oaks. It's on the corner of Willets Lane and River Oaks. As you can see on the vicinity map that's on the screen, as well as in the packet. Here's 10 River Oaks, here's Willets Lane, here's River Oaks coming off of Willets Lane, and the area of the license agreement is the Willets Lane right-of-way in this area right here. The proposal is that the applicants would like to construct a berm with landscaping that would be partially in the Willets Lane right-of-way and partially on the 10 River Oaks property to act as a visual and sound buffer between Willets Lane, which is a busy road, and a new residence that the applicant is going to construct on the property that you can see here. The berm is proposed to be partially on the applicant's property and partially in the right-of-way. There is a smaller berm that currently exists on the site. You can see here, and it's partially in the right-of-way as well. The applicants are proposing to increase the size and expand on that. This berm's been in place for quite some time. In reviewing the application, staff checked in with Public Works as well as the other town referral agencies, none of which had concerns. Staff also checked in with the town's hydrologist, Robert Crable, who reviewed it to ensure that the berm would not have an impact on the floodplain or the base flood elevation in the area, and he confirmed that it would not. Staff also worked with the applicants to ensure that the proposed berm would be at least 10 feet away from the current Willets Trail, and we proposed that in the case that we would want to, in the future, add a bike lane to Willets Lane, as is included in the Mid-Valley Trails plan. So we don't think that the berm, because it's so far away from the concrete sidewalk, would impact that. The proposed agreement is revocable and indemnifies the town and was reviewed by the town attorney. So this evening, staff recommends that the council take applicant comments, take public comments, and then provide council discussion. If you're comfortable, you could approve the ordinance on first reading and set the second reading and public hearing for May 25th. Staff is supportive of the proposed license agreement and doesn't believe it would have any impacts on the right-of-way. With that, let me stop sharing my screen. We do have Flynn Stewart Severy here, as well as Ben Neefield and Patrick Westfield to represent the applicants. Ben or Flynn, do you guys have comments for council?
Yes, please. Only a few quick things here. I did want to highlight that there is an industrial complex right across the street. And this is a modest house being built by the river. So when we think about context, we did study alternatives to the sound berm, but found that none of them would have been effective in deterring sound. So it's a 6.5 foot tall sound berm at its highest point. And the reason we are encroaching upon the right-of-way is because we want to maintain the ability to have an average of 3-to-1 slopes and also elongate those slopes so it's more natural. And the proposed planting would consist of native grasses, dogwoods, and coniferous trees to create a very natural seeming berm. And finally, this is located in an area that removes the least amount of existing trees. Thank you.
Great. Are there other applicant comments? If not, then questions of council for James or the applicant, Gary?
What's the current height of the berm?
It looked like it's in the 3 to 4 foot range in that area.
I was trying to get a feel of what the difference size-wise compared to what it is now. And is it now in the town's right away?
Partially, but not very far into the right of way, as I understand it.
I walked by this on Sunday, and it doesn't change anything drastically, just so you know, Gary.
Gary, here's the photo of the berm again that's currently out there.
Yeah, so the grading plan would indicate that, Ben, I think you said 6.5 feet. The grading plan indicates it might be 8 feet. It looks like it goes from 88 to 96 on the contour grading plan that you had there. Which I don't think is an issue, especially if we're sloping this down at 3 to 1. That's a very comfortable. It's not going to look wildly unnatural, like, you know, kind of dirt just piled up. It's going to look like a natural landform. So that wouldn't bother me too much. It does look like it's 8 feet of fill material there.
It should be about 91 around the house. So I think we've kind of taken that 6.5 foot tall measurement from around the 90 contour. There would be no need to go 8 feet tall.
Okay. Other questions for Ben or James? Okay, this is a first reading, so yeah, go ahead, Bill.
No, it's not so much a question about the proposal. I think it's very thoughtful, and I understand the implications of what the applicants are looking for. The thing that kind of sticks in my throat a little bit, however, is almost exactly a month ago, we laid down a precedent and opposed encroachment onto town right-of-way for what was at that time a community serving initiative. This was the bear enclosure, the bear trash enclosure thing. So if we voted against that for encroachment, and admittedly, Ben and his team have teed this up a little bit better, but it kind of bothers me that we established a precedent of opposing encroachment on town right-of-way for whatever reasons people had for voting against, and now we are seemingly reversing gears. And so I wonder how you address that philosophically and in principle, or how we should think about that as counselors. What makes this that much different that we should vote in favor when we voted against something that was clearly in the public interest before?
I'd like to chime in if possible. The reason I voted against the last proposal is because the process of which people are required to follow was not followed. This applicant is following the process, is doing their due diligence, is doing everything that we require as a town. That was not followed beforehand. Work was just commenced. That's the main reason that I oppose the other applicant, and I stand behind that decision.
Other comments, replies? Gary?
Yeah, no, I kind of agree where Bill and Fonte is going. I mean, that's why I was starting to ask the questions of the height of the current berm, how much is it encroaching now? I mean, I always have a big issue with encroachments into town right-of-ways because it just sets the precedent to allow more. I'm sorry, Ben, I have to disagree that this is a modest sized house. Anything above 3,000 square feet is not necessarily a modest house. And I just believe that, that I try to believe that people should, I have to keep on my property. So I do believe people should stay on theirs for improvements, especially since what they're trying to do is to block sound from Willets Lane. I mean, to me, to me, it will set another precedent that, the next person along a right of way will come in and do it. So I always do have issues with this, and I most likely will not be voting in favor of it.
Sorry, other comments, questions? Elise?
I also voted against the encroachment in the right-of-way in the last issue, very much for the same reasons as Glenn, as well as the requestees' sort of lack of remorse for not following the process. And my question for Ben is there space to back the berm up a little bit onto the existing property such that the grading that is in the right-of-way is not any more than is what currently is in the berm?
So thank you for the question. There really is not, because we want to have the ability to create elongated slopes and not have issues with stabilizing with revegetation and also planting trees, because that would go against what we're trying to create from a naturalistic standpoint.
And do you foresee, were we to deny this application, of creating this sort of less graded, less attractive berm? I mean, is the priority for the client to have the sound mitigation or the appearance of a natural element to the property?
It's both. So we know that you need to at least have 6.5 feet of height to actually have an efficient sound barrier. I've also lived on the property on that side of the house, and it is very noisy. So I can understand where they're coming from, and it's only going to get worse.
Lisa, if I may add to maybe an answer or clarification on that. In order, the applicant wouldn't be able to push the berm to the east anymore because of the floodplain. Let me share my screen again. The berm already grades out here, and the floodplain is coming right through here. So the town's hydrologist had to do a pretty significant review of the berm as it's designed to make sure water wouldn't back up into the floodway and increase the base flood elevation. So probably couldn't move it any further to the east here, just as a clarification.
Yeah, I'd offer a couple of comments. I went out and looked at it myself. And it's always a dilemma. On one hand, you don't want to encourage the bermification of the mid-valley every time someone has a view that they don't care for. I think in this instance, it is a difficult lot relative to the mixed land use. I think that, from the perspective of the biker or pedestrian hiker on our Willets Lane bike path, I think the quality of the environment is actually improved by virtue of this berm. I think the planting and landscaping, yes, obviously the motivation for doing this is to create more privacy and a higher quality residential environment for the family that's going to build a house there. But it's also a better deal for the public, I think. I think it's going to be well landscaped. It's going to have a more natural feeling. I think the 3-to-1 grading plan is very sensible and is a net good result for the development. I think just having a house sit there without screening and be fully exposed to Willets Lane is not as good a solution as the one that's being proposed here. So I intend to vote in favor of it, but that's one person's view. So additional comments, reservations, questions, forecasts. Okay. I would entertain with that then a motion to approve on first reading ordinance number 5, series of 2021. No takers?
I'll do it. Mayor, I move the town council approve ordinance number 5, series 2020, first reading and public hearing, and set public hearing, second reading for May 25th, 2021.
Okay, great.
And actually, it was series of 2021.
Yeah, you said 20, Glenn, but
Well,
I wasn't going to sharpshoot you on that one. Is there a second?
I'll second it, and I would also encourage that we allow a public hearing. If the public is very upset by this and don't want it, I think we should hear from them. That's what I kind of wished we had in the other hearings for the same type of thing.
Sure.
I understand we're setting a precedent, but I'd also remind everyone that I'm pretty sure we voted 7-0 for a fence on town property a couple months ago, even before the other ordeals.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, we did.
you know, I know we don't want to create a slippery slope, but you know, all the eggs fall in our basket, and I think we should also entertain the public on this. I'm sorry for the commotion in my house.
Great. So it's been moved and seconded. We do not require a public hearing, being a first reading. Pam, I would ask that you call the roll.
Absolutely. Okay, let's begin with Bill Infante.
Kind of wishing you hadn't do that.
Short straw.
Under great duress, would have argued in the last hearing that we as counselors have the ability to exercise judgment. And so inasmuch as I am desperately concerned about the precedent that we are setting, I do still think this is reasonable, and the request at face value is sensible for the homeowner and for the public. So I will vote yes.
Thank you, Bill. Gary Tenenbaum.
No.
Thank you, Gary. Elise Hoddle.
Yes.
Thank you, Elise. Ryan Slack.
Yes.
Thank you, Ryan. Bill Kane.
Yes.
Thank you, Bill. David Knight.
Yes.
Thank you, David. And Glenn Drummond.
yes, and I would like to add that this applicant followed the process.
Yeah, maybe before we leave the item, have we asked for comment from the River Oaks Homeowners Association? Have they weighed in on this? And do we have any commentary from them?
They have no reservations about it.
Okay.
The motion carries 6-1.
Thank you, Pam. So that concludes item 7D. Our last formal official order of business is first reading of ordinance number 6, series of 2021. That's an ordinance of the Town Council, Town of Basalt, Colorado, approving water rate charges pursuant to section 13-47 of the Town Code. Ryan and Christy.
Do you want to take this one, Ryan, or do you want me to start it?
Yeah, if you'd start it, Christy, I think that'd be good.
Okay, that would be great. Okay, thank you, Mayor. So just wanted to bring this item to your attention. As we were going through our financial audit, they're digging deeper each year, which is really good. And I so appreciate all the input we get each year, but they really looked closely at our water rate structure this year for the first time. And what we noticed in that review is that there were discrepancies between the Cassell version of what was being charged in the ordinance. And so what happened with that is the last time we had approved the water rate ordinance, the rates, and that was back a while ago, were not checked in accordance with Cassell, and they just increased the rates 45%. And so that was what was intended by the last water rates, is to increase everybody's rates 45%, but the ordinance didn't reflect that, because there was some small nominal increase that occurred between the prior ordinance and the one that was approved back in 2019 that wasn't recorded. So it created this need for this adjustment, and we just wanted to make sure that before the audit report comes out that we tried to clean this up and do our best to make everything as clean as possible. So that's the general gist of it. Ryan, did you want to add anything to that?
You know, the only thing I would say is the rates that our in-town users are paying are the appropriate rates. And to your point, the Cassell, which is our program that we use for all of our finances, sometime before 2019, when we increased those by 45%, there was an interim increase that was probably an inflationary increase, and so that was captured in the budget, we believe, and so it was not the latest reference whenever that 2019 ordinance, it wasn't in the code that way. And so essentially where we are is we believe that the correct amount has been being billed. It's just a cleanup in the ordinance that we need. Now, one issue that we do have, we have 20 out of town customers, and it's very typical to charge a higher rate for out of town customers. And that's sort of been a case for every single town I've ever worked for. Unfortunately, those 20 customers have been paying, as far as their gallonage, the in-town rate. And so we'll go through and inform them of the undercharge that they've had or enjoyed for the last few years, but we'll need to do that correction just to make sure that we're capturing that revenue, and we wouldn't go back and try to, you know, do a back charge with them or anything of that nature. But their rates will go up a bit, and so this is just getting out ahead of the audit and trying to do the cleanup to reflect what we've got in the Cassell financial records.
And besides those out-of-towners that Ryan had just mentioned, that everybody will be charged the same rate. So
as a point of clarification, have these out-of-town customers been noticed? Do they know what's coming?
Not yet. We just finished an audit of that, of all of those customers. So we'll be reaching out to every single one of them.
Okay. Yeah. Great. Elise?
Can we just define, I don't understand out of town customers. Are you saying outside of city limits?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think the philosophy behind doing that is that when you are when you live in the town, when development occurred, you know, you've been paying into the system, and the you know, the infrastructure cost at that time was has been being paid by the in-town customers, whereas the out-of-town customer, you know, theoretically didn't have the same those same burdens of cost over time. And so I think it's more of a, you know, we encourage these users to be in town, and when it's extraterritorial, as they call it, you know, you pay a premium for that.
Elise?
is this going to put any kind of financial burden on any of these customers? I mean, right outside of town, you know, we have McMansions and we have, you know, trailer parks. So when you say out of town, that's sort of a very nebulous term.
There's a mix of those customers. So if you recall, our water system only includes the areas of the south side and downtown. So if you know, these customers would be a few of the properties that exist up the Frying Pan. Over on Homestead Drive, there are out of town customers. Up on Cedar Drive, there are some out of town customers. And so, you know, it's not their base rate, as I understand it. It's the, you know, the gallonage. So, you know, I think that could there be some burden that might be, but, you know, I think on one hand, they've also been getting a break that, you know, they shouldn't have been getting for the last, you know, few years. So, you know, I think it's just a matter of making sure we're informing them and letting them know. One thing, there are a few trailer homes that exist outside of the town boundary. I believe those are largely in-house use. You know, you don't have irrigation associated with that, to my knowledge, and so, you know, that increase would be for the in-house use.
There's one other thing. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say we can show you what those increases would be before second reading too, if you'd like.
I would like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've run those numbers. So.
Are there other comments, questions for David?
Yeah, I just wanted to see what the kind of discrepancy was between the current ordinance and whatever the rates are in the software, like Basalt or whatever the software tool is. For second reading, it'll be good to know.
I can put a comparison together. That's fine. I actually have that information together. There's roughly a little over 3% difference for the majority of the adjustments. Like Ryan mentioned, the largest one was the out of town, which was not billed correctly in Casell, which was larger.
And I think it's important to clarify that the majority of those users, they're not going to see an increase. So their bills are going to stay the same as they have been. We're just catching the ordinance up to what the billing system has been.
Very important clarifying point, yeah. And the other thing too, that Jeff Conklin and myself talked and Ryan talked about at length is looking at at some point or another, we really want to consolidate all these ordinances on the rates into one fee structure for all of our water rates. But we are looking at doing a water needs assessment and rate assessment. And I know we're working on the RFP for that currently, and we should be getting that out fairly shortly. But once we complete that work with our consultant, then we'll bring all the rates back and do a more thorough review.
Jeff?
I was just going to add 2 quick points. I think this was mentioned, but the rate increase that occurred in 2019 and prior was all based on a rate study that had been done for the town. And so this was just consistent with that rate study, number one. Number two, and this is just a reminder, and this is partly where the rate study came in, but the water fund is operated as an enterprise, and to preserve the enterprise status, the revenue generated by, or that goes towards the water fund, needs to be generated from sales of water. Not more than 10% of the revenue to the fund can come from the general fund in order for that to preserve its enterprise status. So that was one other reason why those rates were previously changed. And that's all for me.
Okay, any additional comments, questions? So this is also first reading. With that, I would, if there are no further comments, entertain a motion to approve ordinance number 6, series of 2021 on first reading.
Mayor, I move that the town council approve ordinance number 6, series of 2021 on first reading and set the public hearing and second reading for May 25th, 2021.
Great. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Pam, please call the roll.
Thank you. Let's begin with Glenn Drummond.
Glenn, you there?
Yeah, sorry. Yes.
Thank you, Glenn. Bill Kane.
Yes.
Thank you, Bill. Ryan Slack.
Yes.
Thank you, Ryan. Gary Tenenbaum.
Yes.
Thank you, Gary. Elise Huddle.
Yes.
Thank you, Elise. David Knight.
Yes.
Thank you, David. And Bill Infante.
Yes.
Thank you, Bill. Motion carries.
Okay, I guess before we depart, I would just like to remind everybody that we have one more, it looks to me like we've got one more Zoom meeting, and then we're going to be face-to-face, which I really look forward to. I think this has been unbelievably challenging trying to do this thing over these many months. So I really look forward to it. So I know Ryan is thinking long and hard about how to do this and, respect the public health order. And, but hopefully we can get together. I know there are going to be serious considerations for head count and how many public we can accommodate and spacing considerations and all the rest. But I would personally really encourage us to stay on the track of not going much past the first meeting in June being a face-to-face meeting. I think, yeah, Elise, you want to weigh in on that?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm super excited to see you all in person, but I do want to put a plug in for keeping a hybrid version of Zoom and in person for public comment, at least, because I do think that it allows some folks to be able to participate that wouldn't otherwise. So I think that that's in our best interest.
Yeah, I think that may be required.
If I may, along those lines, we've been working on that so that we could do that hybrid. I think council discussed that at the last meeting. And Pam, I just want to make sure she gets recognized for the hard work to get us to this point of an ever-changing sort of set of circumstances to get us all together. One thing to consider, on the 8th, the day that we plan to get back together, everybody will need to be masked the entire time in the meeting. We have an indoor mask mandate in place still, and it looks like Pitkin County will be keeping their indoor mask mandate. Now, the town hall is situated in Eagle County. And so, I think we're going to need to have some discussion. I think by the end of this month, the whole reason we continued it to the 8th was to figure out where is the state going with it, where are the counties who have the public health staff going to be landing, and it looks like we may have a bit of a mishmash in town, depending upon which county you're standing in. And so, I think it's going to be just an interesting discussion. But, at the next meeting, we'll be able to kind of prepare you with hopefully a little more information on what to expect on the 8th. So, thanks.
I would like to point out, I'm willing to say fully vaccinated, got the vaccine. We all know the guidelines. If everybody's fully vaccinated, you're good to go. It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing.
Yeah. Good comment. Anyone else? Hearing none, I would call for adjournment of our meeting. Thank everybody for good meeting tonight, and love working with you guys. And it's going to be a lot more fun, I think, when we can yell at one another across the table. So thanks, and good night.
Everybody.
Thank you, everybody. See ya.